Well, hey there. Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to this rare weekend installment of Open Mic. It's good to have you here. I am, of course, your host, John Campea. Good to see you guys and good to have you around. And yeah, it's Saturday. And I just thought, we didn't have a chance to do an open mic on Friday. We didn't have a chance to do it on Friday. And so I thought, you know what? Instead of just saving everything for Monday, why don't we just have a weekend one? Anne's out for dinner with some friends. We're going out to a club in LA like later tonight. So I thought, hey, we got some time. Why don't we do an open mic? And because we haven't done one on a weekend in a while. And hello to everybody in the live chat. Good to have you guys here as we got a lot of stuff to talk about, because Open Mic is a show where, as the title suggests, the mic is open. The floor is yours. What do you guys want to talk about? That is what we are here to discuss. And there's two different ways you can get a question on Open Mic. The main way is if you're not watching live, anytime 24 hours a day, can be 2 a.m. and a question pops in your head, you can send it in to our tip link at streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. There's a link to that down in the description of this video below. And the next time or two that we do open mic, as long as your question is appropriate to be used on the show, we will address it here on open mic. But the other way to get a question on, for those of you who are watching live right now, and unfortunately you got to be watching live as this is happening, you can use the super chat feature and send in a question that way. And again, as long as, it's appropriate to be addressed and used on the show, I will address it on the show. All right, guys. We got a big week coming up. There's a lot of stuff going on that we're going to be doing. I made some announcements the other day on a town hall meeting of our YouTube channel members. So every once in a while for our YouTube channel members, and by the way, for all of you guys who are YouTube channel members to our channel, thank you guys so much. And every once in a while we do these open town hall meetings for our YouTube and exclusively for our YouTube channel members, where I made some announcements, let them know some things, and we're going to be testing out some things this week as it pertains to those announcements. We'll talk more about that publicly as we go, but waiting to find out tomorrow afternoon what the opening weekend box office numbers are for Dune. I still think it's going to be about double of what Dune 1 was. I think it's going to be around $80 million. It kicked off for its preview nights at $12 million, which is $2 million more than what Oppenheimer generated on its preview night. And Oppenheimer, I think, opened to around... Where did it open up to around to? Like around $80, $90 million. Anyway, so it should come right in around that neighborhood. So I'm very, very, very excited about that. And we'll see how that all turns out. I've already gone to see Dune 2 twice. Anne and I are going to go see it for a third time tomorrow. So I'm fairly stoked, obviously, to see that again. Anyway, let's get to it, shall we? Before we get to your questions, every day I like to kind of start with a topic just to kind of kick things off. And on Friday, somebody asked me what I thought were the best Fox-era X-Men movies. Now, look, honestly, there are a lot of people who crap talk on the Fox era of X-Men movies. And granted, while we did get a X-Men 3, and granted, we did get X-Men Dark Phoenix, or whatever the name of that one was, yeah, and those were bad. X-Men Origins Wolverine, yeah. But I think people forget that they made some awesome movies. And by the way, the first X-Men film is the movie that kicked off this new golden age of comic book films. Some people think it was Blade. It was not. It was the X-Men film that kicked it off. Like when you go around and talk to studio heads and stuff like that, and you listen to interviews from big executive producers, they say it was that movie that made Hollywood realize, wait a minute, we can do comic book movies like this. Remember that first X-Men movie? It started off with a Nazi concentration camp with Jews literally being led off to their deaths and a young boy being separated from his mother that turns out to be Magneto. I mean, they had never done anything like that in a comic book movie before, right? And they did some great stuff. So I thought I would do my countdown of what I think are the best X-Men Fox era movies. All right. So I'm going to give you, and I don't normally do top fives, but since I had a chance to actually prep this and prepare for it, I'm ready to go. To nobody's surprise, X-Men Origins Wolverine is not on the list. But I think all 5 of these films are great. So let's get things started off here, shall we? We're going to start off at number 5. My number 5 best X-Men Fox era movie, Deadpool 2. This was a blast, a truly worthy follow-up to the first Deadpool movie. I don't think quite as good as the first Deadpool movie, but great. Josh Brolin, Zazie Beetz were both excellent additions to the cast in that. The post-credit scene in Deadpool 2 is absolutely hilarious. I really enjoy this movie a hell of a lot. The kid was really good in it. The fight between Juggernaut and Colossus is awesome. I absolutely really adore Deadpool 2. So I have Deadpool 2 as my number 5. In my number 4 spot, a movie that for a little while, many people considered to be the best comic book movie ever made, X-Men 2. I mean, whereas X-Men 1 kicked things off on, in an incredible way and really got the whole genre going again, X-Men 2 followed it up and kind of perfected it. I mean, it was just so ahead of its time. And of course, you got Succession guy Brian Cox playing Stryker in that. And again, like I said, for a couple of years, the big debate is the best comic book movie ever made Spider-Man 2 or X-Men 2? And whatever side of that argument you take, there's no wrong answer. They were both incredible. So my number 4 best Fox era X-Men film is X-Men 2. All right, which leads us into my number 3 best Fox era X-Men film, which is the first Deadpool. I mean, this movie came out and it did things I think everybody wanted a Deadpool movie to do, but a lot of us never actually thought they would do. Like, come on. It doesn't matter how much Ryan Reynolds insisted to us, oh, this is going to be an off-the-chain Deadpool, like no restraint Deadpool. That's fine. We heard him say stuff like that, right? Like, oh, hard R and all that kind of stuff. But even then, I don't think any of us were prepared for International Women's Day. That was not something I think any of us were prepared for, how far they went. But they didn't just go far and over the line for the sake of going far and over the line. Every time they did it, it was actually hilarious. Like, it was actually funny. Going over the line isn't funny. Being funny is funny. And if you can do both at the same time, fabulous. And the first Deadpool did it. And it's just, it's just one of my favorite comic book movies ever. And I'm sure, you know what? I don't know a single person that doesn't like Deadpool. Film is subjective, so I'm sure there are people out there who don't like Deadpool. I'm just saying, I don't personally know anybody that doesn't like Deadpool. Like, everybody likes Deadpool. Anyway, so there's that. So at number 5 is Deadpool 2. At number 4 is X-Men 2. At number 3 is Deadpool. Number 3 is Deadpool. So my number 2 best Fox era X-Men film, and I believe one of the best comic book movies ever made, is Days of Future Past. I just watched this again last week because I don't know why, but in my YouTube feed, a couple of clips of X-Men Days of Future Past came up in my YouTube feed. And I'm like, you know what? I want to watch this again. So Ann and I got back from our evening walk and I wasn't quite ready to go to bed or anything. Like, it was still kind of early. It was about 10 o'clock. I thought, you know what? I'm going to watch X-Men Days of Future Past again. My God, when's the last time, honestly, that you watched X-Men Days of Future Past? When's the last time you watched it? Because like I've always known in my head, yeah, it's like one of my favorite comic book movies, but it's been a bunch of years since I've seen it again. And then this week I'm watching it again. I'm like, this movie is fucking awesome. This movie is incredible. And it's just fantastic. And somebody in the live chat just mentioned the Rogue Cut. Who was it? I think Adrian James just mentioned the Rogue Cut. I've never saw the Rogue Cut scene where they rescue her from where they rescue Rogue, where Magneto and Bobby go to rescue. I've never seen that scene before, and I just saw it like yesterday for the first time. Absolutely loved it. It is to me still a top 10 best comic book film ever made. It is an absolute wonderful piece of the genre. I love this movie so much. X-Men Days of Future Past is my number 2 best Fox era X-Men film, which leads us to number 1. And to absolutely nobody's surprise, you all knew this before we started, Logan. Because Logan is not just, I believe, a top 3 best comic book movie ever made. Like, for not listing in any order, but I believe in no particular order, I believe the 3 best comic book movies ever made are the first Avengers movie, The Dark Knight, and Logan. Those are the 3. And you can put those in whatever order you want. I don't care. But to me, those are the 3 best comic book movies ever made. And Logan is just, I still remember the first time I saw it. Actually, I think me and Jeremy Johns went to a screening of Logan. That's right. It was the first time I saw Logan. It was me and Jeremy Johns. We went to go see Logan in LA. And we both came walking out of that just going like, it was kind of the same reaction I had when I came out of Captain America Civil War or Winter Soldier. When I first came out of Winter Soldier, like me and a lot of people came out of the movie theater going, what did we just watch? That's the reaction we had when we came out of Logan. It was like, I didn't know that you could make comic book material like this. And of course, James Mangold, the masterful hand of James Mangold directing it and all that kind of stuff. It introduced us to Daphne Keane, who we're going to see, by the way, X-23, Daphne Keane in this. We're about to see her in Star Wars The Acolyte. She's the star of Star Wars The Acolyte. That's going to be coming out in a few months. Very excited to see her in that. And I mean, it was truly, and guys, you remember the first trailer? The first trailer was like so perfect. Like, I don't know. It's rare that you see such a perfect matching of a song to a trailer. Do you guys, anybody in the live chat remember what song they used in that trailer? I know there's like a few second delay, so I'll give it a second here. For anybody remember what the song was they used in the trailer? It was like perfect. And yeah, the first person got King Daddy Go just mentioned it. I hurt myself today to see if I still feel with that guitar and like the stuff with Old Man Logan. And it's like, oh my God, like this, it was art. I don't care what Martin Scorsese says. It was cinema. That movie is so good. And honestly, not just like one of my favorite comic book films, but I'd say like maybe in my top 10 favorite movies, period, that I've seen in the last decade. I haven't really thought about that much, but right now when I think about it, I think there might, if I sat down and actually did a list of my top 10 favorite movies of the past decade, Logan would probably be out. So yeah, not just one of my favorite comic book movies, like one of my favorite movies, period, is Logan. So to everybody who says that, oh, you know, the X-Men movies era over at Fox, that was just a big failure. Screw that. No, it wasn't. It had a couple of times it fell on its face. Absolutely no argument from me. But when you just look like Deadpool 2, X-Men 2, Deadpool, X-Men Days of Future Past, and Logan, yeah, I mean, they didn't knock it out of the park every single time. But the Fox era of X-Men films was a good era. Yes, they had Dark Phoenix. Yes, they had X-Men Origins Wolverine. Absolutely. I'm not denying that. But man, they had more wins than losses. And when they won, like Logan and Deadpool and Days of Future Past, they won big. They won huge. They knocked it out of the park with those. And so, yeah, there you go. Those are my top 5 Fox era X-Men films. What do your guys' lists look like? I would love to know. Go ahead and let me know in the comments or send in a super chat and we'll discuss it there. All right, guys, with that all down, let's get into the main reason why we're here. The main reason Open Mic even exists, which is to take your topics and questions, shall we? So let's get to it. And we're going to start off with, boy, that's not right. That's not right at all. Let me see if I can fix this. There we go. Justin T. And Justin T writes, have you seen Atonement? Oh, with Keira Knightley? Yes. Have you seen Atonement with Keira Knightley and James McAvoy? What did you think of it? One of my favorites. It's a fabulous movie. And you know what? I think look, Keira Knightley has never been bad. Like, Keira Knightley is always good in whatever you put her in. Not that the movies she's in have always been fantastic, but Keira Knightley is just one of the best. I always get excited when I see that there's something with Keira Knightley in it. And I know for a long time, people would confuse Keira Knightley and why am I freezing on the name of Padme? Padme, help me out. Why am I freezing on her name? I'm looking at her face in my head and I'm freezing on her name. Come on, guys, help me out. Natalie Portman. Thank you. A lot of people would often confuse Keira Knightley and Natalie Portman, which was understandable. But I mean, yeah, I think Keira Knightley is absolutely wonderful. All right, next up. Ripley writes, hey, I'm writing to ask if you've ever seen the film End of Watch. Yeah, with Michael Pena. I saw it for the first time a few nights ago and loved it. The ending has me in tears. Listen, that was a tragically underrated film. Because that was Jake Gyllenhaal too. There was Michael Pena and Jake Gyllenhaal, I believe it was. Anyway, that movie it was tragically underrated. I thought it should have been nominated for Best Picture that year, and I don't think it was, but I absolutely believe it should have been nominated for Best Picture. It was gripping. It was powerful. I think David Ayer directed it, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong about that, but it's just such a powerful, wonderful movie. Guys, seriously, if you have not seen End of Watch, I recommend you. Next time you got a free night or you got a couple hours in the evening, maybe you're home from work a little bit early, grab a drink, sit down, watch End of Watch. I think you're really going to enjoy it. It's a really, really great movie. All right. Thank you, Riley. Next up, we got Jersey Kid who says, hey, John. As always, love the show. Been watching since the AMC days. Thank you so much, man. My question is, after your well-deserved retirement, are you still considering doing open mics on weekends? This community has been my family for well over 20 years. Yeah, so like sometime, for those of you who haven't heard, I'm sure most of you have, sometime in 2025, whether it's definitely going to be after the new James Gunn Superman movie. But whether it'll be right after the new James Gunn Superman movie or whether it's at the end of 2025, like that's almost 2 years away from now, I'm planning to retire. But it's going to be a mostly retire, right? I'm definitely going to still do podcasting, like maybe 2 or 3 times a week, because that's very, very low effort compared to doing YouTube shows. So I'm probably still going to do some podcasting. And I don't know, maybe like once a week or something like that, I'll do something like an open mic. I don't know. We'll see how much Ann wants me to do. Because listen, I got a lot of big plans. I got big plans for stuff I'm going to be doing with my time when I retire. But yeah, I'm still going to be doing some stuff. Like I'm still going to be around, just on a much, much, much smaller scale. All right. Thanks for the question, Jersey Kid. Next up, Dangerous D writes, just watched Lady Hawk again after watching you and Robert talk about it. The fact that this wasn't rebooted or made a limited series on Netflix is crazy. Listen, there is something, Rutger Hauer, Michelle Pfeiffer, Matthew Broderick. Lady Hawk is great. It doesn't age beautifully, I think, because of it's this kind of sword and sandal era movie, but it's made with this like very 80s synth pop music. Like it's just very unsettling and off-putting a little bit, to be honest with you. But here's the thing. I think you're right that it's kind of crazy that it hasn't been remade, because when you look at the basic premise of the movie, these star-crossed lovers who receive a curse where they can never be together because they transform at dawn and dusk, and they only get to briefly, for a quick moment every day, see each other for the briefest of a split second before they transform. It's a beautiful premise for a story. And I mean, listen, there's a lot of people today who have not seen Lady Hawk. It doesn't age particularly great because of the music style and all that kind of stuff, but I contend that the story is so good that I would be surprised if in the next couple of years somebody doesn't do a Lady Hawk, because you could turn that into a series. I really think you can turn that into a series. So yeah, we'll see. All right. Thanks, Dangerous D. Next up, we've got an anonymous viewer who writes, the segment the segment where about Superman Legacy, I agree with Robert. It has to be successful as well as be a great movie. No, it doesn't. And no, it absolutely does not. And I'll explain why. Doesn't have to be a runaway hit, just break even. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, the upcoming new Superman movie, now called Superman, not Superman Legacy. James Gunn just announced they changed the title from Superman Legacy to just Superman. I like that move, by the way. I have said for some time that I do not expect this first new DCU movie to be a hit. I think it's going to struggle at the box office. Now, there's two different things we're talking about. One is box office success and one is quality of the movie, right? And actually, let me do a quick poll. I'm going to put up a poll right now in the live chat for those of you who are in the live chat. And I'm just going to ask, does Superman need to be a box office success? And I'm going to put that up there right now. Simply yes or no. I'm just curious to know what some of you guys think. So you guys can see up there right now. We've got the thing, does Superman, the new Superman movie, need to be a box office success? I'm not going to look at the results of the poll yet, but I'm going to guess most of you are going to think yes, but I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. And let's see, what do we got in here right now? So far, 155 votes. 68% of you are saying yes, it needs to be a financial success. 32% of you are saying no. All right. So now I'm going to tell you why it doesn't need to be a success. Financially. I have said this whole time, now 64% thinks it needs to be a success, 35% with 208 votes. All right, so I have said for a long time that what Superman needs to be is great because you're coming off of 5 years of abject failure in the DCEU where none of the last 8 films broke 400 million at the box office, except for the latest Aquaman 2, which just crawled over the $400 million mark. And people have given up on the DCEU. Nobody wants to go to the movies, the DCEU movies anymore, and blah, 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 right? And people are going to associate that stench with DC. So now along comes James Gunn and Peter Safran, and they're starting up a brand new thing. And the most important thing is that the movie is great, because that is going to determine whether the audience wants to get back on board with DC or not. There's never been a movie that, I don't know that there's ever been a movie that needs to be great like Superman does, the new Superman. But what it doesn't need to be is a financial success. And I want you to hear me out here, okay? This is a new venture. Whenever you're starting out, like they'll teach you in business school, when you start a new business, don't expect to turn a profit in the first year or two. If you can, great. But that's a standard, common boilerplate piece of wisdom. When you're starting up a new business, don't expect to be profitable right away. When they're starting, when Disney and Paramount Plus and Peacock start up these streaming services, they know they're not going to be profitable for the first couple of years. They got to get the audience on board. They got to get everybody inbound. They got to get, sail out their business strategy and all that kind of stuff. And then after a few years, you be profitable. But I'm going to give you a great movie-to-movie example of this. I can't remember what year it was. I'm not Scott Mantz or Robert Meyer Burnett. I can't remember movie years exactly. But back when Batman and Robin came out, that movie was so bad. And the 1 or 2 movies before it were not great either. But Batman and Robin was so bad that it killed not just the Batman franchise, it killed the comic book movie genre, and it took the entire genre a couple of years to recover. Like literally, that movie was so bad, it killed not just the franchise, it killed the Batman franchise, it killed the genre. It was a laughingstock, right? With Arnold Schwarzenegger, just freeze. I can't do Harloff's Schwarzenegger nearly as well. But It was terrible. It killed it. Nobody wanted to see Batman anymore. No, a lot of people gave up on comic book movies. That's how bad that movie was. All right. That's how bad. Some people say Blade came out in 1998. Yeah, but not a ton of people saw it, and it didn't revive the comic book genre. It took like that, and then it took X-Men, the first X-Men movie to come out, I believe in 99, to really start thinking. But there was a couple of years, right? And certainly Batman was done. That's kind of like where the DCEU has been. Like the DCEU just kind of killed DC in the movie screen, right? 8 years of failure and just kind of killed them on the movie screen. Okay. 5 years, I should say. 5 years of failure, the last 8 films. So it's kind of analogous, right? You've got the Batman franchise that went off the cliff with Batman and Robin, and you got the DCEU that just kind of had a more gradual dying off, but everybody's given up on it. Okay. Flash forward years after Batman and Robin. Flash forward years. And along comes this little director named Christopher Nolan, who had done Memento, which was a great, great film. He had done this little film, Memento. And Warner Brothers decides, you're our guy to try to revive Batman. Right? You're going to be our guy to revive Batman. And so he makes Batman Begins. Now remember, everybody had given up on Batman, right? Batman and Robin and the one before it and stuff like that. People had lost interest in Batman, all that kind of stuff. So they knew, Warner Brothers knew they wanted to make a new series of Batman films, but they knew that the first one was not going to be a big financial hit because everybody had given up on Batman. What was important was that Batman Begins is great. They knew that's what was important. And do any of you guys remember how much Batman made? Batman Begins didn't even make as much as Black Adam. Didn't even make as much as Black Adam. I think it made like 370, something like that. I mean, I think it just was barely able to break even, maybe even be a little bit profitable, but it was by no means, by any metric, was it some big, huge financial success. It wasn't. It wasn't. And you know what? Warner Brothers knew it wouldn't be because they were still trying to recover from the stench of Batman and Robin. They knew that we needed to win the audience back over, so we need to make a great first movie so that when we make more later, the audience will come. Bang, what happened? The Dark Knight comes out a couple of years later, billion-dollar film. Bang, what happens? A couple of years later, The Dark Knight Rises, which I don't think is great, but still, The Dark Knight Rises comes out, boom, billion-dollar film. All from that first one that they knew wouldn't be a big box office hit because they were trying to recover. They were rehabilitating the image of Batman at that point. And Christopher Nolan made an amazing movie that didn't even make $400 million. But that was okay. That was right according to plan for Warner Brothers because they knew the important thing wasn't that Batman Begins is a big financial hit. It just had to be awesome. So when we make the next one, it will be a big financial hit. That is exactly the situation DC is in right now. DC is in the same situation right now. They know that, hey, listen, the last administration ran the DCEU into the ground. All the audiences gave up on it. None of them made any money. And we have a long way to go to win the audience back over. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with our strong character. We're going to come out of the gate with Superman. And we know it's not going to be a financial hit because everybody's given up on the DC stuff on the big screen. But just like when Batman Begins came out, we need to make a great movie so that when the next couple of DC movies come out, we've hopefully won a lot of the audience back over. So no, Superman doesn't need to be a financial hit. It doesn't need to be a hit. It'd be nice if it broke even. It'd be nice if it made a little bit of a profit, But Warner Brothers knows, just like they did when Christopher Nolan was making Batman Begins, that we can't expect the first one to be a hit because everybody's given up on that property. And we need to win them back over. And that is the number one job of the movie. So yeah, no, I think Batman, the history of DC, proves that the first one out of the gate doesn't need to be a hit, but it has to be great. It can't be pretty good. It can't be solid. It can't be, you know what, that was all right. No. Superman Legacy, sorry, now it's just Superman. Superman has to be great. It's got to be great. Like Batman Begins was great. Because you got to win the audience. That is the sole, not just the number one job. It is the sole job of that movie. To say to the movie-going audience, we're back. And we are going to produce quality content. So maybe a lot of you don't come to this first one like they didn't go to Batman Begins, but maybe you'll come out for the next couple of ones. Maybe the next couple of ones won't be billion-dollar films like The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises were, but get back on that path to upward trajectory at the box office. So no. I mean, again, it'd be nice if Superman breaks even. Absolutely. But it doesn't need to. They're starting a new business. You don't turn a profit normally in your first couple of years. And unlike other new franchises that are starting with a clean slate, Batman started with 3 feet in the grave already because of Batman and Robin. Superman is starting way underground because of how badly the DCEU was run. But if they can make them great, like Batman Begins was, they'll be on the right path. So anyway, yeah, that's my whole thing with that. Superman Legacy does not need to be, and Warner Brothers isn't dumb enough to expect it to be a financial hit. If it does, gravy, fabulous. But they know that that's unlikely, and that's okay. They just need to make the movie fantastic. All right. Thanks a lot for that, Anonymous. Next up, we've got Matthew Grant writes, most memorable theater experience for me was back when Fellowship of the Ring came out and the Barlog first showed up. That blew me away the first time I saw that. When he first did the roar, even though the theater was cool, I could feel the heat radiating from him because my heart was pounding. I'll tell you what, man, a lot of people, we take it for granted today because grand visual effects we kind of take for granted now because every kid in their basement can use Blender and make visual effects now. We're becoming desensitized to great visual effects, I think. But man, I remember the first time I saw that, it was not as moving as the first time we saw the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. Like that was a revolution in visual effects. But the Barlog, first of all, just visually was so overwhelming. And then the sound design with it. And oh my God. So good, man. So good. Powerful, powerful movie memory, dude. All right. Thanks for sharing that, Matthew. Next up, Dangerous D writes, Tracker series on CBS has similarities with Reacher, in my opinion, and I have a funny idea that if we switch the actors, Hartley and Richardson, I don't think no one will notice. You know what? I really like Justin Hartley. Justin Hartley, like, he first came on the radar for a lot of people, because remember, he was Green Arrow. He was Oliver Queen in the Arrowverse. And sorry, not the Arrowverse. He was Oliver Queen in the Smallville verse. And that's where a lot of people got to know him. And then, of course, he had his big, massive, culturally huge series, This Is Us. And he was fantastic in that series. And This Is Us is now down, and I'm really excited to see this Tracker series because I really like Justin Hartley. I haven't watched it yet. I know it debuted after the Super Bowl, so I haven't seen it yet, but I'm looking forward to checking it out. I don't know that people would confuse Justin Hartley for Alan Ritchson, though. They are two physically very different sizes, guys. Justin Hartley's in tremendous shape, but I'm looking forward to seeing Tracker. I haven't watched it yet, but I hope it's good. All right. Next up, we got an anonymous viewer who writes, 1, the problem is not that they made a Morbius movie. 2, the problem is that they're making bad movies. True. 3, then you would have just made a bad movie with a great character in it. 4, it doesn't matter what characters you use. So why crap all over a Wonder Twins movie? Okay, that's a fair question. So the basic idea here is that, like, what I've been saying is, like, some people saying, well, of course Sony's failing because they keep making D-list character movies. What the fuck do you think Guardians of the Galaxy was? It was an F-level characters that they made in there. The problem is that they've made bad movies, right? If Morbius was a great movie, none of us would be complaining. If Madam Web was a great movie, which it is not, if Madam Web were a great movie, none of this would be a problem. The problem is that they're making bad movies. Again, I use the example of some of the greatest comic book characters of all time with one of the greatest comic book villains of all time, Doctor Doom. Fantastic Four and the Doctor Doom, right? All-time celebrated characters with one of the all-time greatest villains, and some people would think is the greatest comic book villain of all time in Doctor Doom. Guess what? They made 4 movies with them, and they all sucked. So clearly, that didn't make a big difference. Now, Wonder Twins was a little bit of a horse of a different color, because the Wonder Twins to me are just in premise. Because you're talking about popularity of characters, right? A lot of people say they use D-list characters. It's not that they used bad characters, it's that they used unpopular characters. That's what people complain about. Morbius is a great character. He's not a popular character, but most people agree he's a great character. Madam Web is a fascinating comic book character. Not popular, nobody knows who she is, definitely D-list, but she's just a really intriguing character in the comic books. The Wonder Twins are something completely different. The Wonder Twins in and of themselves are ridiculous characters. Like, they're just nonsensical characters. Morbius is not a nonsensical character in the comics. Madam Web is not a nonsensical character in the comics. Guardians of the Galaxy, while silly, they are not nonsensical characters. They're really great characters in the comics. All their various iterations, well, not all their various iterations, but most of their various iterations. The Wonder Twins were created for Saturday morning cartoons. They didn't even come out of the comics. Did you know that the Wonder Twins did not come from the comics? They were specifically created for a Saturday morning cartoon show where they had ridiculous outfits. Then again, a lot of comic book characters have ridiculous outfits, so I shouldn't hold that against them. But literally, the dude's power was to form of a bucket of water. And he turns into a bucket of water. Cool. I mean, just the very nature of the characters were always inherently stupid, right? It's not about whether you use popular characters, not popular characters, stuff, and all that kind of stuff. But you at least want to use characters that have something there that you can take and translate onto the big screen. Now, listen, when they were talking about making a Wonder Twins movie, I always prefaced every time I talked about it with, I mean, who knows? The right writer could come along with the right director, and maybe they make Wonder Twins into something fabulous. It's possible. It's possible. But why not start with a good character? Doesn't have to be a popular character, doesn't have to be a famous character. But why not at least start with a character that's got something there that you can work with and translate to the screen? Morbius is a character that could have worked on the big screen. Madam Web is absolutely a character that could have been really interesting on the big screen. The only downside to those characters is that they weren't popular with the regular movie-going audience, but that's fine, you know? But the Wonder Twins is something different because that's just the characters themselves are utterly stupid and ridiculous. All due respect to anybody who are Wonder Twins fans, I don't mean to offend anybody, but you're asking me, and to me, they are just inherently ridiculous characters that weren't even created in the comics. They were made for a Saturday morning cartoon show, and they were utterly stupid, in my opinion. Yeah. Form of a parakeet. Shape of water. What? Yeah. Yes. So I did find that ridiculous. I really, really did. But that's why. And that's the big difference between the two scenarios you're talking about. All right. Julian C. writes, what is the likelihood that James Gunn's first Justice League movie will be directed by himself? Also, if the unconfirmed rumors are true that the DCU is leading up to a version of Kingdom Come, by the way, those aren't just unconfirmed rumors. They're completely made up. That's completely made up. Anyway, what is the likelihood that he'll direct that? Look, James Gunn has said that he will direct more than just the first Superman movie. But he can't overstretch himself. his first responsibility is being the CEO, co-CEO of DC Studios. He's supposed to be running a studio. And now that doesn't mean he can't direct a film here or there. Whenever they do get up to their first Justice League movie, which is I'm sure is probably like 5 years away, I would think the smartest thing for him to do would be to get somebody else to direct it. I mean, I think he's one of the best directors out there, like not in the top 3 or anything, but you guys know I'm very biased for James Gunn. I think he's fantastic. I love his art style. I love his sensibilities. I love his humor. I love his like weird take on deep issues. I just think the dude is a fabulous, fabulous filmmaker. And so I'm excited that he's directing Superman, but I really do think he has to make sure his first priority is running the whole ship and being that leader of the entire organization. So I don't know. I mean, the idea of directing a Justice League may be too much for him to resist. I would say it's a 20% chance that he would direct it. But again, we are years and years and years and years away from that. So, but we'll find out, man. All right. Thanks for that, Julian. Next up, Romeo writes, after the failure of Sony's recent superhero movies, what are the chances that we see a Madam Web 2 or Morbius 2 or even see them cameo? I think next to none. I don't think Jared Leto would ever want to, like, Jared Leto is very aware about how mocked Morbius is. Dakota Johnson is very aware of how utterly hated Madam Web is. And just like after their failure with The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Sony at least had the wherewithal to say, we need to stop. We can't move forward with this anymore. That we just killed this. We ran this into the ground, which is too bad because Andrew Garfield is my favorite Spider-Man. But that being said, I think they realize, we can't do another Morbius, and we certainly can't do another Madam Web. So I have no insider information on this, Romeo. This is just me as a fan guessing and speculating. So take it for what it's worth. Just a guess. My guess is we never see them again. I mean, they might be rebooted someday down the line, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years from now, maybe. But these iterations, the Dakota Johnson, Jared Leto iterations of Madam Web and Morbius, I don't think we'll ever see them again. I don't know that as a fact. That's just me guessing. So, but I don't think we're ever going to see them again. All right. Next up, we got McDavid Deserves Better writes, you mentioned a $35,000 hospital bill. Yes. I'm so grateful to be Canadian. Last year, after turning 30, I was in hospital with heart failure, receiving surgery and the final medical care on earth at the U of A for a grand total of $0 during my month-long stay. Listen, I'll tell you what. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, when he's talking about a $35,000 bill, you guys know I've been a little sick, like since January. Like I got really sick for a couple of weeks, and then I've been fighting a cough. I think the cough is pretty much not 100% gone, but it's like 99% gone now. Thank goodness. But it was so bad at first that I had to go to the hospital. Like Ray had to come over and pick me up. Ray and our buddy Ryan came over, picked me up, and had to take me to the hospital because I was having trouble breathing. Like I was coughing so, like every 3 to 5 seconds, I'm coughing. So I could hardly breathe. All my muscles started to hurt. Breathing was a labor. So they took me to the hospital. I was there for about 5 hours. Okay. I was in the hospital for like 5 hours. They put me on oxygen. They gave me a couple of meds. They monitored me for a few hours. The oxygen really helped. I was then like coughing every minute instead of every 2 to 3 seconds, but the oxygen helped a lot. They took me in for a CT scan of the chest. 5.5 hours I was there. I just got the bill. It was $35,000. It was $35,000. Now, granted, thank God, my wife and I have great medical health coverage through my wife's work's insurance plan. So I only ended up having to pay about $3,000. It's still $3,000 for 5 hours, but the bill itself was $35,000. And listen, I remember as a Canadian, when I first moved down to the States, and I moved down to LA, the first time that this really became, like I became aware of this, was me and some friends were talking about going roller skating, like doing a weird roller skating night, right? I mean, let's go roller skating. Yeah. But one of our friends literally said they couldn't go. I can't go roller skating. And we're like, why? It's like, because if I fall down and hurt my wrist or something, I won't be able to go to my waitress job. And I have no health insurance and it will ruin. I'll go bankrupt. I'll be ruined. So I can't go roller skating. And you just got to understand, as a Canadian, I was just like, what? Like you can't even make a decision about doing some recreational activity because if you get hurt, like in this country that I'm living, and by the way, I love the United States. I love this country, right? It's not as good as Canada, but I love living here. I met my wife's American. I met my wife here. I love my life here. So many great things about this country. But I remember thinking, what kind of backwards savage land thing are we living in that if you get hurt, you could go bankrupt and you can ruin yourself financially? As a Canadian, it was just such a wildly alien premise to me. Like such a wildly alien premise to me. I'll just give you an example too. My mom, she's home now. She just went home a couple of weeks ago. My mom, it got really scary. I had to fly home last year because I thought I was going home to say goodbye to my mom. But my mom's a fighter. She's fucking East Coast bitch. So my mom finally went home, but my mom had been in hospital for nearly 2 years. Not in and out. Like she's been in hospital for nearly 2 years. She was finally able to go home a couple of weeks ago. First time she's been to her house in almost 2 years. If that had been here, my family would be ruined. My family would be ruined. I mean, what are you guys doing? I mean, for a country that is so great in so many ways, I'm sorry, you guys are fucking backwards when it comes to your healthcare system. That guy can go into the hospital with a cough and be there for 5 hours under observation and get a $35,000 bill. My God, what do people with real health problems have to face? I don't know. It's just a thing to me. And like, people go, well, providing healthcare, that's socialism. Well, so's having a military. So's having a police department. So's having a fire department. So's having public roads and water and electricity. That's all socialist. There are some things that are just we understand as common sense that are for the common good that we should be able to do under capitalism without being afraid of it being socialist. Roads, fire departments, stuff like healthcare. I don't know. Again, this is not my area expertise. I'm a fucking know-nothing movie pundit, so what the fuck do I know? But it's just really something that really jumped out to me. So, yes, McDavid, yours is a Canadian story. It ain't an American story, though. So anyway, all right, let's move on here. You know what? True story. When I first moved to the States, I didn't have a health insurance plan. The first year or so that I was here, I had no health insurance plan. And my friends would ask me, what's your health insurance plan? I said, here's my health insurance plan. If I get sick, go to the airport, fly to Vancouver. That's my health insurance plan because I'm Canadian. My plan is if I get hurt or injured, get on a plane. If I can't get on a plane, get into somebody's car that's willing to drive me across the border to Vancouver. That's my insurance plan. Anyway. All right. Next up, James LH writes, hey, John, it's been a while since being able to write in. So seeing Dune 2 this weekend, my two favorite books ever since the 80s are Lord of the Rings and Dune. Nice. As I've read the books, it's fun watching you and Rob with your knowing smiles talk about where the story goes. Yeah. Yeah. By the way, there's a piece of American propaganda. This is something that I don't know, people spread around. They don't pay doctors well in Canada. Yes, they fucking do. Believe me, I've dated a doctor. I have, like, they pay doctors just fine in Canada. Anyway, that being said, yeah, listen, the one thing that makes me nervous about Dune, is Dune Messiah. And again, I'm not going to go into it, but you've read the books, James LH. You know what I'm talking about. I just think there are things that happen in Dune Messiah that are really not going to be fan friendly. And sometimes a storyteller shouldn't be worried about what is fan friendly or not. They just have a story to tell. And I respect that. That's great. I'm just nervous how the audience will react to it, because again, there are things that happen big things that happen in Dune Messiah that are definitely not going to be considered fan friendly. And I just wonder how people are going to react to that when it happens. But yeah, we'll see, James. All right. Thanks a lot for writing that in, man. Next up, we've got, again, James LH. John, regarding the Potter series, you may know that Max isn't available here in the UK and parts of Europe due to the deal with Sky. This ends after 2025. I would be surprised if Zaslav doesn't have a UK launch of Max in 2026 with the premiere of Potter itself. That is very possible. Now, but, you know, I had somebody else ask me, it's like, wait a minute, if we don't have Max up here, are people in the UK going to be able to get Harry Potter? Look, they are 100% going to make sure that when their new Potter series comes out, it'll be available in the UK. You can't have a Potter series come out and not have it available in the UK. Now, whether that will be as a result of them launching Max finally over there, or whether that will be a licensing deal through another carrier over there, one way or the other, I am 100% sure that they're going to make sure it's available there. Now, I know they want to get up there with Max proper, and maybe you're right. Maybe that'll be how they launch with the new Potter series, which would be pretty huge if they could do that. But even if they can't, they will make sure that they're able to have it viewed up there, whether it's on Max proper or licensed out to another distributor out there. All right. Thanks for that, James. Next up, Suthius writes, the acting, cinematography, overall production, and the score. Oh my goodness, the score, Shogun, is awesome. I find it interesting that the only times we hear English is when John is speaking to his men. All other times it's Portuguese translated for us. Yeah, so like there's 3 different languages happening, right? In Shogun. First of all, I haven't seen the 3rd episode yet. Anybody in the live chat remember when what days does Shogun come out? I can't remember. I just can't remember when the next Shogun episode comes out. And you guys know? Tuesday, Bobby Jackson says. Oh, Tuesday, can't get here soon enough. This show, at least the first 2 episodes, has so gone far and beyond my expectations. If you guys haven't watched Shogun yet, you're making bad life choices. Shogun is so good. Now, remember, whenever I talk about how great Shogun is, so far, 2 episodes in, I remind you and I remind myself that, hey, the first episode of Obi-Wan was really good too. And look how that went. And hey, John, before you get too excited, buddy, the first episode of She-Hulk was quite good. And look where it went after that. So I try to temper my enthusiasm a little bit for Shogun because the first 2 episodes are so mind-blowingly awesome that I don't want to get carried away. I'm tempering it, saying, don't forget, John, there have been other shows, had great first episodes, and then they didn't go so well. So but it's hard, dude. I am so excited for every Tuesday now. For every Tuesday, I'm very excited. Cannot wait. All right. Next up, we've got Tristan Thorpe, who writes, I got 2 characters Batista could play villain-wise. Darkseid, I'm sure they'll go mocap, but I think he's got the voice for it. And this way out of the box, Highfather from New Gods. Just my 2 cents. I mean, yeah, but X-actor and X-role, look, I think there's a lot of guys that Dave Batista could play. One that I would be very, very interested in. I mean, obviously, look, everybody, even Dave Bautista has said he'd like to play Bane. I don't think they'll make him Bane. I think he would be a really good KG Beast, which is a DC, more specifically associated with Batman villain. I think you could be a really cool KG Beast. My thought is, oh, you know what? Cinema's, that's not bad. Vandal Savage, that's not a bad choice either. You know what, though? I would say this. And remember, I've been talking a lot lately how Dave Bautista has really evolved well as an actor, but I think if you're going to do a Vandal Savage, I think you get somebody who's a little bit more of an advanced actor, a bit more, because that's going to be a little bit more heavy lifting acting-wise. And I mean that as no disrespect to Dave Bautista, who I adore. I adore Dave. But I think for a Vandal Savage, you might want something a little more trained, a little bit more of a thespian, that kind of level. But yeah, there are a lot. And I think if you're going to go, if you want to talk about dark side, why not get a professional voice actor, right? Rather than say a Dave Bautista. Like, I think there are many characters Dave could play. But again, I kind of still lean towards KG Beast. I lean towards that a little bit, but we'll see if he ever, but I'm sure he will end up in there somewhere. All right. John writes, John, just saw Dune 2, masterful. Chalamet cements himself as the current top young actor. My God, after watching Wonka yesterday, I wasn't expecting to be able to see him so clearly as the leader of the Fremen, but he killed it. Austin Butler too. You know, people have been looking at me funny for the last year and a half, 2 years, because I've been saying for the last year and a half or so that, especially after seeing Call Me By Your Name, Beautiful Boy, a little bit more recently, Bones and All, that I have said, and people always look at me like I'm crazy when I say it, that I believe Timothée Chalamet has the potential to be the next Daniel Day-Lewis. Not that he is the next Daniel Day-Lewis, but because this dude is just getting better and better and better and better. He's not even near his peak yet, and he's already one of the best actors on the planet. And then I saw him in Wonka, and I was like really interested in seeing him in Wonka, because it's like, you know, when you look at, talk about those movies that I just listed off, right? Like Beautiful Boy, Call Me By Your Name, Bones and All, like Wonka, playing Willy Wonka is a total departure from any of those types of characters, right? How's he going to be able to play off the light, the jovial, the joyous, the fun, the funny? You know, would he be able to do that? By the way, something we didn't even see Daniel Day-Lewis do a lot of. The greatest of all time. Daniel Day-Lewis is the best. He's the Bret Hart of acting. Best there is, best there was, best there ever will be. But how would he be able to do Wonka? And he's so good in Wonka. He's so good in Wonka. I fell in love with him in that. And then coming into Dune 2. And I'm telling you, for those of you who've seen the movie, that Fremen War Council scene where he comes in and holds court, that's one of my favorite scenes in any movie ever. And he carries such power, such force. It's a revelation how good he is in that. And every time I see him, I become more and more firmly entrenched in the belief that Daniel Day-Lewis, if there is an heir apparent to Daniel Day-Lewis's throne, the only one in the world right now who's got the potential to be that is this kid. It's Timothée Chalamet. And I just became more convinced of that after watching Dune 2. All right. Next up, we've got Thrilla in Manila writes, hi from the Philippines, kumusta ka? First time sending in a question, but been watching since my 20s. I'm now 40. I've been watching for a while, man. I wanted to ask, hypothetically, if Superman were to be a big hit at the box office, what would that signal for the franchise, DC, and the genre as a whole? Thanks. Well, here's the first thing I would say is that I think we as film fans, myself, I think we're all guilty of this, me too, like we as film fans, we get caught up a little bit in, we get caught up too much in the overall importance of one film doing well or one film doing badly. Right? It's like, oh no, this movie was a box office bomb. This is going to ruin everything. Well, no, it's just one. Look, If Superman Legacy is a big box office hit, which I don't think it will be, but if it is, that's great, but it doesn't necessarily mean that other films will be big box office hits as well. I don't think it means anything for the genre. When talking about how will something impact the genre for the good, for the bad, for a franchise, you've got to look at it in terms of eras of movies. And I don't mean like 50-year eras. I mean like 3 or 4 year eras. Because back when Aquaman made $1 billion at the box office back in 2018, it's weird to think about. That's like getting close to 6 years ago now. But when Aquaman became the first DCEU movie to make $1 billion at the box office. It's the only one that did it. No other DCEU movie. And remember, Christopher Nolan's Batman films are not DCEU. It was the only one of all the DCEU movies to make $1 billion at the box office. But when that movie made $1 billion at the box office, right? A bunch of people said, this means that's it now. The code's been cracked. DC movies from now on are all going to be $1 billion films. But that didn't happen. After Aquaman, no DC movie made even $400 million at the box. The next 8 movies, none of them even made $400 million at the box office until Aquaman 2 just barely crawled over the $400 million. It didn't really mean anything. We can't look at it in terms of single movie performance. Now, what's far more important for Superman Returns is the quality of the film. But if it's a big hit at the box office, Warner Brothers will be thrilled. It'll be a big win, super excitement, but again, we're going to have to look in terms of groups of 4, 5, or 6 movies, not just one. You know what I'm saying, Thrilla? Anyway, man, thanks a lot for writing that in. I appreciate it, man. And, I appreciate it very much. And by the way, I might be making a trip to the Philippines. I don't know for sure. But, we'll see. So, again, thank you, man. Next up. We got an anonymous who writes, over under 1%, the mastermind villain of Deadpool 3 is a disgruntled Bob Chapek. I believe there is a chance that there is a Bob Chapek joke. I think there's a chance there's a Bob Chapek joke. That they actually make Bob Chapek the overall mastermind in a fourth wall break, villainous thing. I don't even think there's a 0.00001% chance. A little joke here or there, like one little gag being dropped somewhere in the movie, maybe a 5% chance, but like making him the overall villain, no, probably not. And they shouldn't, by the way. They shouldn't do that. All right. Next up, Caligon, the Black writes, hi, Atreides was a Greek king of Mycene and father of Agamemnon and Menelaus. I don't know this name. Menelaus? I don't know that name, actually. Looking further into the name, I found that it is Greek for fearless. So it is very appropriate that the litany against fear is so important. Oh, actually, I didn't even think about that. That's true. I will not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Is so important to Paul. Greek myths everywhere. Yeah, listen, when you actually sit back and look at Dune, there is a lot of real world heavy influence in those stories, right? Like the Fremen and Islam and like all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of that sort of stuff. I didn't know about Atreides meaning fearless though. And that whole thing about the connection between that and the mantra, I will not fear. Fear is, I didn't even think about it, but that's really a good observation, man. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that. Let's see. Next up, we got Save Legends of Tomorrow writes, with Warner Brothers Discovery known and criticized for deep cost cutting and James Gunn's rep for being a fiscally responsible director, I think Superman Legacy could get made for around $150 million. Yeah, I've heard it's going to be made for somewhere between 150 and 200 million. That's what I've heard at any rate. After all, Fox made 2 Deadpool films for $170 million combined. Thoughts? Yeah, but Deadpool doesn't fly. I mean, so it's a little bit easier to make particularly Deadpool 1. I mean, Deadpool 2, they went a lot more into more heavy visual effects. Deadpool 1's a little easier to do. But yeah, listen, when you look at movies like The Creator and you look at movies like District 9, it becomes apparent that Hollywood spends too much money making their movies in general. Now, some movies like Dune and Dune 2, like you see every penny is spent on the screen. You see it. Like yeah, it's an expensive movie, but you could totally see where that came from. Then you go watch a movie like Fast X, which costs like one of history's most expensive movies ever to make at $360+ million. And I'm like, how is this any more than a $120 million movie? I have no idea. At any rate, so that happens. But, the thing about the deep cost cutting, Warner Brothers Discovery was simply in a position that they needed to attack their debt and reduce costs. They had to. And it's easy for other people to stand around and say, oh, how dare you cut costs? It's what they needed to do to make their business survive and thrive. It's what you had to do. And while a lot of people who know nothing about business finance stand around and criticize Warner Brothers for the moves they're making the right moves to ensure the future health of the company. Just is. That's what they're doing. I mean, you can cry about it. Everybody can cry about it all they want, but they're not the ones responsible for making sure that the company's in good financial position. And when Discovery took over Warner Brothers, there was a lot of debt, like a lot of debt that had to get attacked. And I think being fiscally responsible, cost cutting, stuff like that is something they had to do. Listen, it sucks. I remember I used to work when I was in high school. I would go to this, roller skating is like a theme of this show. But when I was in high school, there was this great roller rink called the Hamilton Roller Gardens. I grew up in Hamilton, Ontario. And there was this great roller skating rink called the Hamilton Roller Gardens. And everybody loved the staff there. Like it was great. You go, everybody had a good time and stuff like that. But the reality is that they were losing money. And they ended up having to let go a couple of staff members. I still remember this, that people really liked at the roller gardens. And being kids who didn't know anything, we would all complain, that's so stupid of you to let these people go. They're so great and blah, 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 blah. Why would you do something so dumb? Now that I'm older, I look back, it's like I realized they were just doing what they needed to do to make sure they could survive and not lose money, and they had to reduce staff. It sucked, but it had to be done. For them to be able to survive, it had to be done, or else everybody was going to lose their job. And I think when you look at something like a Warner Brothers that is doing a lot of very responsible, tough decision things of cutting costs, scrapping some movie projects, all that kind of stuff, they are doing the things they need to do to ensure a healthier financial outlook for the company. It's what they got to do. Or else they're going to end up being in a situation like Paramount is in. I love Paramount Studios, but they're in a very rough situation right now. And if Warner Brothers doesn't want to be in a situation like that, they got to make some tough choices, and they're making them. And armchair quarterbacks, and I'm a bigger armchair quarterback than anybody, but armchair quarterbacks are sitting down and criticizing them for it, but they're doing what needs to be done. All right, guys. That is it for the tip link questions. We're now going to go over and start taking the live questions you guys have been sending in. But before we get to those, we're going to take a moment and thank a couple of sponsors of today's episode, my mobile service provider, and they should be yours, Mint Mobile, and the people who made the pants I'm wearing right now, the perfect jean. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. On average, it takes about 30 days for a person to break their New Year's resolution. So if saving money was on your 2024 list, your odds aren't looking that great. Luckily, I have a 100% guaranteed way to save you money this year. Just switch to Mint Mobile. For a limited time, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for $15 a month. I've told you guys many times that after switching to Mint Mobile, I am spending less than a third on my cell bill than I used to with a major carrier. Say goodbye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. All Mint plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. And don't worry about having to change phones or numbers. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. So guys, to get this new customer offer and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bills to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Hey guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, The Perfect Jean. Guys, are you tired of the rough and rigid jeans crushing your boys? Well, today's sponsor, The Perfect Jean, finally solved all of your denim difficulties. They make great looking, perfect fitting jeans that are as comfortable as sweatpants. The secret? A special denim fabric that is super soft and has the perfect amount of stretch so you can squat, do yoga, or just sit around all day without ever having to take them off. I'm going to admit I was a little bit skeptical because to me, jeans have always been jeans. They're practical, but not always the most comfortable. But I'm telling you guys, it's not an exaggeration. Once I put on these jeans, the Perfect Jean redefined what jeans can be to me. They're the perfect fit, they stretch, they breathe, and again, they're just insanely comfortable. So guys, it's finally time to stop crushing your balls in uncomfortable jeans by going to theperfectjean.nyc/Campea15. Our listeners get 15% off your first order plus free shipping, free returns and free exchanges when you use code Campea15 at checkout. Again, that's 15% off for new customers at theperfectjean.nyc/Campea15 and use the code Campea15. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support the John Campea Show and tell them we sent you. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile and The Perfect Jean for sponsoring today's episode. All right, guys, with that down, let's get over to your live questions that you guys have been firing and using the Super Chat. I'm going to let you know that for those of you trying to send in Super Chats now, and you can't because I've turned off the Super Chats now because they got real full. So for everybody who got their questions through before we turn it off, let's get over to those questions now, shall we? We're going to start things off here with Luke1234, who writes, if you were to redo the John Campea Show in your garage solo again, would you use Mac or PC, laptop or desktop? It depends. If we move back into my garage, which I love my garage studio, but Jonathan Voico will probably still be doing the switching, and he uses a pretty beefed up PC that we use. My personal computer will probably still be a Mac. If I just move home and have everybody work remotely and we all come in virtually, I'll probably use my Mac still. So that'll probably be the way I go. And listen, I am completely brand agnostic. I don't care. I'm not a PC guy. I'm not a Mac guy. Like right now, most of my computers are Macs, but that's just because that meets my need right now. Like you guys know, I've used PCs, I use Macs, I use whatever works, basically. But I think right now I'm kind of using the Mac, so I'll probably use Luke1234 Mac Studio or MacBook, Mac Studio. Is what I'll use for it because it's just the more beefy, powerful. Like my MacBook Pro has a M1 Max Ultra in it, whereas my Studio, has an M1 Max. My laptop has an M1 Max in it, but my Mac Studio has an M1 Ultra, which is like double what a Max is. So I would probably use the Mac Studio. All right. Next up, we got Dwayne Fernandez who writes, hey, John, when you do eventually retire, do you plan on doing open mic still? Didn't you sent in that same question into the tip link, didn't you? I think you did. Again, same answers before. I will probably still do podcasts, and maybe every once in a while on a weekend I'll do an open mic. All right, Dwayne Fernandez also writes in again. Netflix put the Oscar nominee Nimona on YouTube for free for a week. Isn't that a good way to make some money through ad rev? No, it's not a good way to make money. For content that isn't bringing too many subs to the service anyway? No, it's not a good way. YouTube, you don't make much money on YouTube through their ads, all right? You don't make a lot of money through YouTube with the ads. What that is, them putting it on YouTube for a week is probably more of a marketing thing to put it out, say, hey, guys, look at this. This thing's really good, and put it where everybody can access it. We've seen them do the same thing. We've seen Disney Plus do the same thing with dropping some of their stuff on ABC where everybody could see it. It's not to create ad revenue, although you will make a little bit, but it's really more of a marketing thing to say, hey, check this out. Like, this is really good. You might want to come over here and check it out. So I would see that, Dwayne, more as a marketing move than I would as a revenue generator, because you just don't make as much on YouTube ads as people seem to think you do. So I'll just say that. All right. Wesley Cunningham writes, One of three. Sup, John? Do you think Gunn will stick with the Kingdom Come symbol throughout the DCU or include a transition? If you're talking about the symbol, the Kingdom Come Superman symbol that he wears, I don't see why he would change it. If you're going to start off with it, why not just stick with it, right? So my guess, and it's only a guess, is that he'll stick with that symbol. Now, I'm saying that having not seen the movie. So, I mean, maybe the symbol is a part of the story itself, and there will be a symbolic meaning behind the importance of him changing the symbol. But if James Gunn sticks with the mythology that Man of Steel created, that it's not really an S on the chest, but rather a symbol, a Kryptonian symbol for the word hope, then you can't change it too much. So my guess is they'll keep it, but we'll have to wait and see. All right. Next up, we've got Wesley Cunningham again writes, that was 1 through 2, 3. It'd be a cool story for Clark to start Superman with the House of L crest, and by the end have transitioned to a more distinctive letter S. He embraces his role as Superman and all that. But he knows what he's doing, so I'm sure it'll look awesome, and the movie will be awesome either way. Hoping this is DC's big comeback. I hope it is DC's big comeback too. Whether it is or not, we'll have to wait and see. I'll be honest with you, and I think I mentioned this on a previous open mic. Look, I love Superman. It's one of my all-time favorite comic book characters. But when you really think about it, it's kind of silly that his name is Superman and he's got to put a big S on his chest. I'm just in case you forgot, I'm S for Superman. Listen, I'm not saying it's not iconic. I'm not saying it's a part of culture. I'm not saying it's not a part of our zeitgeist and all that kind of stuff. Of course it is. I'm just saying when you really think about it, it's like me walking around with a big shirt that just says J on it because I'm John. J because I'm John. It's like putting your name on your underwear. So I will personally be okay with it if it continues to be the symbol for hope, a representation of the House of L. That makes more sense to me. So I'll be okay if they just don't go back to the big letter S because it's Superman. Get it? S because I'm Superman. I'd be okay if they didn't do that. All right. That's just me. I'm sure many people disagree with me on that, and that's fine, but that's just me. All right. Jared writes, hey, John, you said Dune 2 was a near perfect film. If you had to think on it, what are some small nitpicks you have against the movie before I see it? I mean, yeah, listen, no movie is perfect. And here's the thing. There's a difference from being perfect from not having flaws. You cannot have flaws, but not be perfect. Because to be perfect isn't just you didn't do anything wrong. To be perfect means you couldn't have possibly done this one thing better. Like the music in a movie could be a real strong thing in the movie, right? But the music could have been better. It's not like it was the best music of all time. It was just great. It was great. So that's definitely not a flaw. Perfection doesn't mean you don't have flaws. Perfection to me means it's hints that it isn't even possible that it could have been better. And on that sense, no movie to me is perfect. None. So even if I can't think of a lot of nitpicks about Dune 2, that doesn't mean, well, that means it's perfect then. No, they did some things great that maybe even could have been done better. But if I had to think of something, I'm going to say something that's really unpopular, okay? And I'm sure there are going to be people that complain and I get in trouble with. But you'll notice that when I talk about Dune, I talk about how incredible Javier Bardem is in it. I talk about how great Timothée Chalamet is. Talk about how wonderful Rebecca Ferguson is. Talk about how wonderful Austin Butler is, or Skarsgård is, or even the dude who played Jamis. He's in Star Trek Discovery, by the way. Did you guys recognize him? But Jamis, who Paul Atreides fights at the end of the first Dune, and then he recurs throughout this one, like brilliant. If I had to nitpick on one thing, and I know there are going to be people who get upset with me for this, I have grown to really like Zendaya. I like Zendaya very much. I didn't always, but I've really grown a much deeper appreciation for her, especially in The Greatest Showman and the last couple of Spider-Man movies. I like her very much, and I can't wait to see her new, I think it's called Contenders, the threesome tennis movie coming up with her. I'm actually very excited about that movie. I don't think Zendaya was at her best in this movie. Now, my wife may leave me for saying that. My wife loves Zendaya, and she loves Zendaya in this movie. I think she was the weakest performance in it. And I know she's capable of better, right? Because we've seen it. I know she's capable of better. I'm a big fan of hers. But I don't think her Dune 2 performance is her best performance. I don't think it's her best performance. Not that it was bad, though. See, that's what I said at the beginning. I said, look, there's a difference between something that's flawed and not perfect, right? That's two different things. Too many people think that's synonymous. It's not. They're two different things. And I don't think Zendaya was bad in the movie. I don't think it's like, oh my God, when she spoke, it just took me right out of the movie. No, not at all. But I'm just saying, in a movie where you've got like this level of performance coming out of Javier Bardem and Timothée Chalamet and Rebecca Ferguson and, across the board, everybody's just like spectacular in this movie. Zendaya was pretty good to good, not bad, not poor. But when everybody else is just crushing it out of the park, Now, MSK is saying, I heard that Batista is the worst and only because of screen time. No, see, here's the thing. Batista's character is definitely irritating, but that's the character. Like, if you go back and watch other iterations of it as well, Batista is playing the character the way that character should be played. Like that's the character. He's actually kind of crushing the character the way that character is supposed to be. And again, I am not saying Zendaya isn't good as Chani. She is. I'd say pretty good to good. Definitely not a flaw of the movie. But if you're asking me to nitpick a little bit, I would say that Zendaya is, while good, is just the one that didn't come up to the same level that everybody else did in the movie. And I know she's capable of it. So yeah, don't misinterpret me. I'm a big fan of hers and I can't wait for, Contenders or Challengers or something like that. One of the two. I'm looking forward to that movie very, very much. But that would be the one thing. That would be my one little thing. And I still thought she was good. All right. Next up, we go to, what was next? Oh, Jared? Oh no, that was the one we just did. Okay, next up, we got the next Jared. It says, also just started watching Succession and I love it. Succession's great. Who is your top pick or top guess for the successor in that show while it was still going on? I honestly thought while the show was going on, that it would be, who's the oldest, the main guy? What was the character's name? He had the little brother and there's the sister and then there was him. What was his name? I'm freezing on the names of the characters. In Connor, was that the main guy's name? No, Logan was the dad, Dwayne. Logan was the dad. So Connor and Kendall was the McCulkin kid. Which one was McCulkin? Was McCulkin? No, Kendall was the older one, right? Kendall was the older one. Yes. Okay. So not the McCulkin one. Oh no, Roman. Thank you. It was Roman. I forget all the names. It was Roman. I think. Anyway, that he's the guy. So I didn't think the sister. I didn't think McCulkin. I thought Roman was going to be the one to do it. Connor is the one from Ferris Bueller's, right? Connor's the one from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. unless I'm mistaken. So yeah, Rome. Yes, Rome. That's right. I thought Roman was going to end up with it. I really did. But man, they twisted and turned and got everybody all twisted around in that. Okay, next up. I mean, I really like the show, and I'm freezing on the names of the characters. Okay, King Daddy Goat writes, LeBron with 40,000 points, absolutely legendary. Yeah, it is nuts. I honestly don't think, and it's not good. It's always folly to say a record will never be beaten. I don't think that's a record that's ever going to be beaten. I don't know that anybody will ever catch LeBron James. As far as like he already became the highest scoring player in NBA history. Now he's become the only player ever to cross 40. Tonight he becomes the only player to ever cross 40,000 points. It's just never going to be. And do you know that there's nobody else? This is the thing. Everyone wants to have all these debates, and that's fine. This is the thing about LeBron James. LeBron James, let me pull this up here. Top NBA assist leaders of all time. I just want to see if, okay. So the NBA assist leaders, I want you to look at something here. I'm going to bring this up. Hopefully this comes on the screen properly. It does. I'll blow it up a bit here. Okay. LeBron James is the number one scorer of all time. He's also the number 4 all-time assist leader. All right. Not only is he the number 1 all-time scorer, he's also the number 4 all-time assist leader. And as you go through the list, nobody else in the top 10 of all-time scoring is anywhere near the top of the assist list. LeBron James is not just the greatest scorer of all time in the NBA. He's one of the greatest playmakers all time in the NBA. And then here's another stat. So he's number 1 all time in points, number 4 all time in assists. And let me find wait, I know he's up here somewhere. Hold on a second. Carl Dwight Howard. He's like the only one on the list that's really high in the all-time rebounding list too, but I can't find it right now. So, but he's not in the top 10 all-time rebounders, but he's like up there on the list. When you look up the big list of the all-time rebounders, he's up there too. So he's one of the greatest playmakers of all time. He's the greatest scorer of all time, and he's among the most prolific rebounders of all time. Nobody else in the history of the NBA, comes anywhere close to those types of numbers. Nobody comes anywhere close to those types of numbers. It's absolutely scary. How good. And listen, I understand there's a lot of people who hate LeBron James, and they have their reasons for hating LeBron James, and that's fine. But just because you hate LeBron James, don't deny facts. Nobody else in the NBA has ever put up his kind of numbers. Nobody else in the NBA history has ever put up his kind of numbers. That doesn't mean he's better than Michael Jordan, but he's better in some ways than Michael Jordan. He was a better playmaker than Michael Jordan. He was a better rebounder than Michael Jordan. Again, I'm not saying LeBron is greater than Michael. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, yeah, don't deny the numbers, man. Don't deny the numbers. All right. Next up, we go to Mega Red 555, who writes, "Hey John, greetings from Seattle." Oh, thank you, man. That's Rob's stomping grounds, comes from Seattle area. Last weekend I moved into my own apartment. Nice. First time ever living on my own. Can you give us a cool story from when you first lived on your own? Thanks. P.S. Watching Two Towers for the first time tonight. Nice. I'm super jealous of that. Yeah, I remember. So the first time I didn't live at home, I was living in dorm. I lived in dorm at my Bible college. Some of you may not know, I went to seminary. That's the first time I lived outside of the house. But on weekends, I was still living at home. And then the first time I moved out of the house, I was living with friends. So it wasn't really on my own. Like me, my buddy Rodney, some of you remember Rodney who did some, we used to do stuff with me on the movie blog and was a guest on my Star Wars shows here and there. He's still up there in Canada, but me, my buddy Rodney, my buddy Tran, one or two other friends. We lived in this house together that Rodney owned, and we lived in there, but that wasn't on my own. So I lived with a bunch of friends. It was still kind of like a dorm, even though it wasn't a dorm. But then I moved into my first solo place, which was a no bedroom, 400 square foot bachelor apartment. And for those of you who don't know what a bachelor apartment is, there's no bedroom. It's like there's one room, right? You got your kitchen, your living room, your bedroom. It's all the same room, with the one exception of being a little bathroom, right? There was a little bathroom. And it was cool and awesome living on my own. And I moved in there because I was quitting my law job, and I was going to do blogging full time. And I knew I feared I wasn't going to make any money. So I thought, you know what? I got enough money saved up that I think I can try this for a year. And if I move into like the dirt cheapest apartment, I think I paid like $400 a month for this apartment. If I move into the dirt cheapest, smallest, most sus apartment I can make my money last for almost a year, and I can try this blogging thing full time. And if it doesn't work out, then I'll go back to law or whatever. And there was no air conditioning. And you might think, well, in Canada, do you need air conditioning? Oh, hell yes. Yes, in the summers, you need air conditioning. And I remember I had no air conditioner in this apartment, and I was sleeping I had a futon, right? So this futon was my couch and my bed. And so I had this desk over here where I'd pound out articles for the movie blog, and then I would sleep on this thing. And I remember being so hot, I literally stripped down naked, laid on top of the covers, and had two fans that I picked up at like Walmart and Canadian Tire that were literally pointing at me and blowing on me all night. And I just thought that was part of what it meant to live on your own. Now, fortunately, the movie blog took off. I was able to a little bit later move into a little bit of a nicer, it was still a small apartment, but a much, much, much nicer apartment with air conditioning. But yeah, that was, if you can imagine me totally buck naked, sometimes just in my gitch, my little tighty whities, laying on top of this bed, still sweating profusely, trying to sleep with these two living room fans, like just blowing on me the whole night. That was my first experience of living, but at least I had somewhere to bring the ladies. Didn't impress anybody, but at least I had somewhere to bring them. All right. That's my story. I could tell some other stories, but I'm sure you probably don't want to hear them. The other stories I would have. Anyway, congrats, Mega Red. And by the way, super chat in $20. Thank you so much for supporting our channel on that level, man. I totally appreciate that very much. All right. Let's see. Next up, Damaris Love writes, thanks, soft bro, awesome. Don't know what that means. Thanks for being awesome. Thanks, soft bro, awesome. All right. For being awesome. Thank you, Damaris. I appreciate that. And thanks for clarifying what you meant. All right. Felix G writes, first time I saw you, you answered a question saying a Deadpool movie wasn't likely. Now look at us. Deadpool 3 coming later this year. Can't wait. Love what you do. Yeah, I remember like back in my movie, I think it was still in my movie blog days. I think it was. Or it might have been in the early AMC days. I can't remember which. But yeah, it was not looking good. Even Ryan Reynolds was saying it's not likely. And so I remember somebody asked me around that time, do you think we're going to get it? And I said, well, I mean, it doesn't look likely. I don't think we're going to get one. I wasn't alone. Like the world didn't think we were going to get one at the time. But look at where we are now. We've had two incredible Deadpool movies. I can't remember the last time I've been this excited. Listen, I am more excited. I'm not saying you should be. I'm just talking for myself. Okay. I am more excited for Deadpool 3 than I was for Endgame. I was excited for Endgame. I was super excited for Endgame. And I'm not saying Deadpool 3 will be better than Endgame, although, Endgame's great. I love Endgame. I do. I don't think it's a top 5 best comic book movie of all time. Whatever. I'm not saying Deadpool 3 will be better than Endgame. I'm just saying, if I'm being honest, I think right now I am more excited for Deadpool 3 than I was for Endgame. That's how excited I am. And we'll see how good it is or how not good it is, but I'm really, really stoked. So you're right, Felix. Look at where we are now. All right. Next up, Luke1234 writes, why don't you use headphones anymore? Well, no, I only use headphones. Hold on a second. I think I got, yeah. So I have headphones, right? But I only need headphones when I am talking remotely with somebody. Like, I'm just doing a solo show. What would I wear headphones for? What do I need to hear in the headphones? I have no use for headphones right now. When I'm doing the John Campea Show, everybody's in the room, right? Rob or Chris is sitting right across from me. Jonathan is like right in front of me. Ray is right across from me, but to this side. We're all in the same room. I can hear them. I don't need headphones. When I did use headphones was like when I'm doing stuff remotely, like if Rob is at home, or I'm talking to Sean Chandler, or I'm talking to Christian when he's not in studio but at home. See, then we use headphones. And the reason I'll use headphones is because if I have him coming out of my speakers, then you guys will hear him talking, but then you will hear some echo of him coming out of the speakers and back into my microphone. So what I do is I wear headphones so that his voice, my remote guest's voice, doesn't come out of my speakers, so it doesn't go into the microphone and create a looping feedback. And for those of you guys who've been watching me for a long time, you can probably remember a couple of times that we had some of that looping feedback, right? It happens, but yeah, that's why I don't use headphones anymore, because I'm not in a position where I need to use them, or usually not in a position where I need to use them. All right. Next up, we go to Jedediah Elias, who sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you, Jedediah, for supporting us on that level, man. Writes, rewatching Tenet in IMAX since 2020 earlier this week was great. Still has story issues, but Nolan's themes on fate, human nature, and emotion still hit hard. Washington and Pattinson are awesome together. Ludwig's score slaps. He's the guy who also did like the Black Panther score. He did the iconic theme for The Mandalorian. He's fantastic. Listen, Tenet's one of the great things about Christopher Nolan movies is he's so ambitious with his movies. And one of the really best things about Oppenheimer, and nobody talks about this, Nolan reeled it in a little bit. Because sometimes I think Nolan, if there's a knock on Christopher Nolan, it's that he gets so far ahead in his thinking and about like symbolism and things he wants to put into a film that I think sometimes he doesn't stop to think about how will this come across to somebody who doesn't know the story like I do in my head, and how's this going to hit them just sitting in a movie theater cold? And I think Tenet has some of those things. Where it's like, hey, Christopher Nolan's the one who's coming up with the story, so he knows everything and knows how all the pieces fit together. And I think sometimes, and we saw a little bit of this in Interstellar as well, sometimes I think he gets ahead of the audience a little bit. Like just ahead of the audience a little bit. And when he does that, a movie can start to feel disjointed. Even if it's not really, it can start to feel disjointed. Tenet is a very ambitious, ballsy movie that very few directors could have pulled off. Obviously, too, there's some sound mix issues in it, but overall, it's actually a very, very strong film, especially on your second. You know what? I liked Tenet so much more on my second viewing with subtitles. When I watched Tenet for the second time and I had subtitles on, I enjoyed it a lot more than I did the first time I watched it. Just in a theater. By the way, I want to shout this out quick. Somebody who did it? Jake Theron just sent in a $50 tip And thank you, Jake, so much for that. Like, didn't even have a question attached to it. Just sent in a $50 tip to be supportive to the channel. Dude, thank you so much for that. The fact that you just want to support what we're doing here is so generous of you. Thank you so much for that, Jake. I really appreciate that, man. Anyway. Okay, let's keep things going here. We now pick things up with Fry Minis, who writes, if you could coat one bone in adamantium, which? Skull. Easy. Skull. Yeah, skull. That's the one. That's the one I'd be most worried about is skull. So if I could coat one major actual physical bone and not, something we would consider a bone, but a real bone, it would be my skull for sure. All right. Next up, we've got Future Millionaire, who writes, John, if Dune would have come out last year, 2023, would it have been your favorite movie of 2023? Oh, easily. Now, listen, I've said this before. I will say it again. And I say this as somebody who loves Oppenheimer. And I'm looking forward to Oppenheimer winning Best Picture at the Academy Awards coming up in a couple of weeks. But when I came out of Dune 2 the first time, I said this, and I mean it even more now that I've seen it twice. Oppenheimer should be thanking the Oscar gods that Dune 2 moved out of 2023. Because if it stayed in 2023, Oppenheimer had no shot at Best Picture. No shot at Best Picture. None. It would easily go to Dune 2. And even Robert Meyer Burnett, who is a massive Oppenheimer fanboy, as many people are, and rightfully so. It's fantastic. I was asking Rob, but come on, Rob. I mean, like, if Dune hadn't moved, well, they're very different films. Rob would say, the Oppenheimer genius lies in this, the Dune genius lies in this. I'm saying, okay. But Rob, if they were both in 2023, who wins the Oscar for Best Picture? And even Rob was like, Dune 2. I mean, it just is what it is. It just easily would have won. I don't even think it would have been a contest, to be honest with you. All right. And by the way, that's a subjective opinion. All film is subjective. I shouldn't have to say that every time. You guys know all film is subjective. So every opinion I give is a subjective opinion, but that's you asked me. So that is my answer to that. All right. Ronan writes, hey, John, with the current power struggle in the Disney company, are you concerned with Disney and Marvel's future? No. And is Bob Iger going to be able to lead the company back to its former glory? Thanks. Well, they've already made great strides. You've already seen the reports that have been coming out and the stock price and everything. They've done a big turnaround. Now there is a very powerful shareholder in Disney who's been trying to wrestle control of the company away from Bob Iger. And thankfully, that person is losing. That person is also joined by Ike Perlmutter, the guy that Kevin Feige nearly left Disney over until Bob Iger, booted Perlmutter out. So this other guy and Perlmutter are basically trying to mount a rebellion amongst Disney shareholders against Bob Iger and stuff like that, but it's not working. And then even the death blow came to that whole movement a couple of days ago when all the surviving members of the Disney family, like the Disney kids and grandkids, all basically came out and said, no, we back Bob Iger. So when the actual Disney family members who are also big shareholders, and that still carries a lot of weight, when the Disney kids come out and say, and by the way, one of Disney's daughters is very critical of Bob Iger. Like is very, very, very critical of Bob Iger. But even she came out and said, no, going with this Peltz and Perlmutter guy would be disastrous for Disney. Bob Iger is the way we got to go. So I think that's going to settle that because I don't think shareholders are going to rally behind these people when the Disney kids themselves are getting behind Iger. But business is business. I'm not going to pretend that I know the inner workings of the corporation. I don't. But just on the surface, it looks kind of like that. All right. Next up. Jedediah Elias writes, what's your favorite trailer ever? Fury Road for me. Fury Road's a great trailer. That Logan trailer, we were just talking about it earlier. The Logan trailer with the Johnny Cash. That's got to be right up there as well. But I still think maybe the greatest trailer and probably the most important trailer ever made. And if you want to know why I'm saying it's the most important trailer ever made, go on to Amazon Video and search for movie trailers, a love story. I have an entire chapter in my documentary, Movie Trailers, a Love Story, talking about this trailer and the importance of this trailer. It's the first trailer for Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. So that, but yeah, man, I'm telling you what, that first Logan trailer it's right. I'd have to think about it. Maybe I'd come up with some other ones, but that's the one that really jumps out to me right now. All right, next up, Alex Von Gollum writes, Geo, my expectations for Dune 2 were so high and it blew me away. I've seen it 2 times and still raving about it. I can't wait for spoiler discussion. Oh yeah, by the way, tomorrow, I'm not sure exactly what time yet. I'm thinking probably like 3 in the afternoon, but tomorrow we are doing a Dune 2 open spoiler discussion. So if you just want to come by and just talk Dune 2 for an hour or 2, maybe 3, I don't know, we'll see. That's all we're going to do tomorrow is just a Dune 2 open spoiler discussion. Hope to see many of you guys there. All right. Next up, we've got Tom Gillard who writes, Canada is bilingual, technically speaking, yes. Has gay marriage and Braille on money, so it's the only place where 2 blind French lesbians can get married and pay for it in cash. I've never thought about it that way. You know, one of my proudest moments as a Canadian, and we've had in Canada, see, we're not as political. Unfortunately, it is creeping into Canada a little bit. Some of the toxic American politics is creeping into Canada a bit. But for the most part, Canada is not as politically divided as the States is. We have had many, in my opinion, wonderful, and our 2 main, technically speaking, we have many political parties, but the 2 main political parties are the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party, also known as the Progressive Conservatives. Then there's the NDP and the Parti Québécois, and there's a whole bunch of others too. But the 2 main ones have been the Liberal Party and the Progressive Conservatives. And over the course of my lifetime, we've had some wonderful prime ministers from both parties. But I remember this one time I was so proud as a Canadian when the guy who was prime minister at the time happened to be from the Liberal Party. His name was Jean Chrétien. He was our prime minister for a bunch of years. And there was this issue of gay marriage was coming up, and should the gays be allowed to get married? And I remember some people in politics were saying, make it a part of a referendum. Put it to a vote whether or not gays should be allowed to get married. And I remember I was so proud as a Canadian when our prime minister, this is going back many, many years ago, and our prime minister said, this is an issue of human rights. You don't vote on human rights. I still remember, I was much younger, but like to me, that was leadership. And I loved it. And I come from a Canadian history where we've had many wonderful, great conservative leaders, liberal leaders. You know, it's a great system. And I remember this one time, this one particular leader saying, you don't vote on human rights. And I just remember thinking to myself, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. And we as a country, Canada as a country, were way ahead of even our beloved American brothers who I live down here now, in that regard. And yes, I love it, but here's an interesting little quirk about the Canadian governmental system, by the way. Here's that many of my American friends may not know. We have a parliamentary government system, right? Where you guys, you have your Senate, you have your Congress, but at the end of the day, you vote also for president, right? In Canada, you don't actually vote for prime minister. See, Canada is divided up into a bunch of ridings or districts, if you will, right? And in each district, there will be all the different political parties will have candidates run to be their representative of that riding, of that area in Parliament. So if you get nominated and you win your seat for Hamilton East, you then go to Parliament and you sit in this kind of like the Senate in a way, and you sit in Parliament, and that's the government. Now, what happens is whichever party has the most members win in their individual ridings, that party's leader becomes prime minister. So in Canada, you don't actually vote for prime minister. You vote for your local representative. And then if the party who has the most local representatives win, their leader becomes elevated to prime minister. It's a system that has a lot of advantages over the American system, but also has a lot of negatives compared to the American system. It's just very, very different. But I always, whenever I talk to some of my American friends about that, they're like, wait a minute, really? You don't actually vote for prime minister? Essentially, no. You vote for your local representative. And if enough local representatives from that same party win, then that party's leader becomes prime minister. It's just a little bit of a different thing. And thus ends the Canadian civics lesson for today. All right. Next up. And by the way, I think the UK is the same way. England in the UK have a parliamentary system as well. Anyway, Jedediah Elias writes, early for sure, but do you think Superman could be the next superhero movie to receive a Best Picture nomination for Warner Brothers if it's as good as we're expecting? Way too early. Way. I mean, you said it yourself, Jedediah. Look, when you ask, could this movie, any superhero movie coming out, could be the next movie nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards? Any movie. Before we saw it and learned it was horrible, Madam Web could have been the next superhero movie to get a Academy Award nomination. Morbius could have been. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania could have been. So when you ask, could it be? I mean, sure, it could be, in as much as any movie is could. But listen, dude, they literally just started shooting the movie 2 days ago. It's way, way too early. But listen, Captain America 4 could be the next superhero film nominated for Best Picture. Deadpool 3 could be the next superhero film nominated for Best Picture. I mean, Venom 3 could be the next. I mean, it's possible, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. They literally just started shooting the movie. So we'll wait on that one a little bit, Jedediah. All right. Zach Taylor writes, can't believe Dune 2 costs less than $200 million. Listen, I was just saying this. I can't remember if I said it today or if I said it the other day, but when I watch Dune 2, there's not a lot of movies that get made today when you know their budgets and you go, I can see every dollar on the screen. Like a lot of times we walk away saying, why did that movie cost $180 million? Or how could that movie cost $210 million? Or really that movie cost $105 million? It just seemed like it should have cost $50. But Dune is one of those films. It's not the only one, but Dune 2 is one of those films where you can absolutely see every dollar on the screen, man. Absolutely see every dollar on the screen. All right, next up. Ryan Newsom writes, hey, Mr. Campea, I've always had thoughts of what if in cinema history. I've always thought, what if Ethan Hunt crossed over with James Bond? Thoughts? Well, listen, that's a question that comes up a lot, right? Like a lot of people thought, okay, what if Matt Damon's Bourne had a fight with John Wick and had a fight with Ethan Hunt, Tom Cruise in the Mission Impossible films, and a fight with James Bond? Like, who wins out of those four? It comes up all the time. So, my belief is this. If it is a gunfight, John Wick wins. If it's for every man for himself battle royale between John Wick, Jason Bourne, Ethan Hunt, and James Bond, and they're using guns, I think John Wick wins. If it's hand-to-hand combat, it's probably Jason Bourne. Yeah, I think if it's just hand-to-hand combat and no things, I think maybe Jason Bourne wins that fight. I'm not 100%. I mean, maybe I'll have a different opinion on that. I mean, who's the best spy, though? James Bond is the best spy. But if you're talking just a gunfight, John Wick wins. Just a hand-to-hand fight, Matt Damon wins. But if it's a mix of everything, maybe the overall best spy is probably Bond. But, you know, that's up to the fans to decide, Ryan. That's up to the fans to decide. All right. Next up, we got Nico, who writes, did you see somebody broke the record for the fastest 40-yard dash time at the NFL Combine today? No, 4.21. Absolutely ridiculous. Might see a sub 4.2 someday. Also, great show as always, John. Well, thank you so much, Nico. Yeah, you're 4.21. Why am I freezing on the name of the Miami Dolphin? Who's the fastest guy in the league right now in the Miami Dolphins? The Miami Dolphins wide receiver. Why am I freezing on his name? Come on, somebody in the live chat, bail me out here. Tyreek Hill. Thank you, Michael Gonzalez. Watching that's faster than Tyreek Hill. And you watch Tyreek Hill, you watch a Miami Dolphin game, they got to play zone on him. They got to have a drop back safety, all that kind of stuff. Because all the time you just see him starting from line of scrimmage and just throw it into a gear and blow past the defender, right? It's just kind of crazy. But I did not hear about somebody running that fast. So it'll be, I'd like to find out who that is. I'm going to assume it's a wide receiver. Normally it's the wide receivers that are the fastest guys. Very cool. All right. Thanks for that, Nico. Next up, Jedediah Elias writes, Denis Villeneuve says that he has a secret project coming. What would you like to see him do? Also, your thoughts on saying he regrets Blade Runner 2049. I haven't heard him say that, and I would need to know the context, right? Even if he did say there was something he regretted about Blade Runner 2049, just saying he regrets Blade. I don't think Denis Villeneuve regrets that he made Blade Runner 2049. I would have to read the full comment in context. What would I like to see Denis do? He's always said that his dream project was Dune. So where does he go from here? I don't know. Maybe just something original. Going back to Arrival or Prisoners, get away from, for a little bit, go find an IP to do again in the future. Sure. But for now, get back to something original, kind of the way Christopher Nolan, when he was doing his Batman films, he would do an original film and then a Batman film and then an original film and then a Batman film and then an original film, then a Batman film. I'd like to see him kind of adopt that as well. So, hey man, whatever he wants to do, I'd be totally, totally down for. All right. Next up, we got Mitchell Rod, who writes, hey, John, was wondering what you think Joker 2 will have to make for it to be considered a success. Depends on the budget. I mean, my guess is probably about 500 million. I think 500. Now, a lot of people will look at that and say, well, that's half of what the first one made. Yeah, that will suck. But I mean, as long as it makes money and is good, then it's successful. So when you say what it'll have to make for it to be considered a success, well, for who to consider it a success? For the studios to consider it a success? For rational people to think it's a success? For just the random fans to think it's a success? I don't know. But I mean, definitely if it makes 600 million, it's a success. Then it just becomes a matter of levels of success. I don't think Joker 2 will make $1 billion like the first Joker did. But then again, nobody thought the first Joker would make $1 billion. Yet, nobody on the planet thought the first Joker would make $1 billion. As a matter of fact, I still remember a Joker movie without Batman. When they first announced it, a Joker movie without Batman. No one's going to go see that. Nobody's going to go see that. And we say, guys, I think this is great, telling an Elseworlds kind of story with it where it's not tied. No. If it's not tied into the DCU and it doesn't have Batman, no one's going to care. No one's going to see it. All right. Made $1 billion. Got nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards, and Joaquin Phoenix won the Academy Award for Best, but whatever. So I don't think Joker 2 will make $1 billion, but I didn't think the first one to make $1 billion either. So I don't know. So I think 600 million. I think if it makes 600 million at the box office, that is an undeniable success. There will be naysayers who go, but it's not as much as the first one made. Okay, yeah, but that's not the question. The question is it successful? And if it makes 600 million, even being as expensive as it is, I think that'll be, it might even make a little bit less than that. Might even make a little bit less than that. And even if it does, that's fine. But I think 600 would be a good kind of bar for that, I think. All right. Next up, Jedediah Elias writes, next IP to get an epic trilogy like Dune or Lord of the Rings? No idea. There's not many left. I mean, there's really not many left, like big, iconic, recognizable properties that have not yet been turned. I mean, I think that's why there's been a lot of attention being turned to the video game format now, right? Because I think most of the big popular IP, non-movie IP, the biggest ones have kind of been mined now. And I think that's one of the reasons why people are now turning more to video games, are having to turn to video games as new potential IP. So yeah, I really don't know. It's going to have to be something that comes up out of nowhere, I think. All right, next up, we got Bobby Jackson, who sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you, Bobby, for supporting us on that level, man. And Bobby writes, I will say if they ever did a Wonder Twins movie, they should base it off the 2019 Mark Russell comic book run. It's a more serious yet fun take on their powers base is more evolved. Yeah, and that's the one where they're like in high school and it's more of a like a teenage coming of age, a little bit more serious thing that they did. I remember when the whole debate about them doing a Wonder Twins movie came up, a lot of people brought up that particular iteration. And the fact that they were getting the guy from Riverdale. Do you guys remember this? They cast the guy from Riverdale. The guy who played Archie in Riverdale was going to be one of the Wonder Twins. Not that I have anything against that guy. It's just the association with Riverdale on CW. I was like, that's perfect for a Wonder Twins movie. And again, nothing against the actor himself, not at all. But like, yeah, I did not see anyway. Nobody was going to take that seriously. Let's just be honest. Nobody was going to take a Wonder Twins movie seriously. It was such a phenomenally stupid idea. And one of the things that gave me a lot of respect for the new ownership at Warner Brothers was that one of the first things they did when they came in and took over Warner Brothers was they killed the Wonder Twins movie. That was a very, very, very good decision on their part. All right. Next up. Brandon writes, did you see that Brother Son just got canceled? I did. I heard that today. Guys, if you have not seen, let me see if I can find this here. Brother Son with Michelle Yeoh. It is so good. It is seriously so good. And like, nobody watched it. I guess not a lot of people watched it. This show is wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. I had a blast watching it. Like, don't get me wrong. It's not House of the Dragon. It's not Last of Us. It's not like Succession. I'm not saying it's a top 5 best show on TV. Okay. I'm not saying that. Let's not get carried away, but it's a really good, really fun, very entertaining little show. But even when I was watching it and loving it, and Michelle Yeoh's fantastic in it, the two brothers are great. Even when I was watching it, I could tell because I'd be like, oh man, Brother Son. But nobody was writing in to talk about it. Nobody was writing in to talk about it. And I just got the sense that not a lot of people were watching Brother Son. They didn't, again, in classic Netflix pattern, they did a terrible job marketing it. I never even heard of it till Ann said, have you heard anything about this new show that just popped up on Netflix now? Like what? Brother Son. Like a nephew, brother, son? No. Their family name is Sun, S-U-N, and it's the brother's son. Like you and Rob are the brothers Campea. My brother's name is Rob. You and Rob are the brothers Campea. It's brother's son. Like, no, never even heard of it, but it's now on. It's on. It's not even a trailer. It's on. Netflix did a terrible job marketing the show, but it's really good. And they ended it perfectly, set it up for a nice sequel for a season 2, but it got canceled. Not surprised. But if you haven't seen Brother Sun, even though it's not going to get a season 2, don't worry. Season 1 is a complete story. I go check it out. It's really enjoyable. I liked it a lot. All right, next up. Bobby Jackson writes, speaking of Shogun, since you know the original series, do you know if this new one is a limited series or could this go on for multiple seasons? To the best of my understanding, it is a limited series. It is the story of the book. Now, if they decide to make a sequel, a second season, then they're getting into new territory. But as far as I know, and I could be wrong, I'm not claiming that I have the information, but as far as I know, the season covers the whole book, as far as I know. So it should be a limited series. But if it's super successful and they decide to do a sequel, Ron H in the live chat, Shogun 2, show harder. I love that. If they decide to do a second sequel, then it'll be getting into original content. And maybe that'll be good, maybe not. But well, as far as I know, that's that. All right. Richard Lai writes, where is that Lobo announcement? Shouldn't Gunn or Momoa make this special announcement soon? It's obvious he's been cast since Gunn's takeover. Well, first of all, let's be very clear. Nobody anywhere on an official level has ever said Jason Momoa is going to be playing Lobo. A lot of us are assuming that. I'm one of them. We're assuming he's going to be playing Lobo. But nobody at DC, nobody in Jason Momoa's management, nobody has ever said officially that he's actually going to be playing Lobo. So let's be clear about that. So if something comes out later where we find out Jason Momoa isn't going to be playing Lobo, I can hear, but they announced he was playing it. No, they didn't. They never announced that. They never announced that. A lot of us are assuming he's going to be, and whether he is or not, we'll find out. But let's, for argument's sake, say that he is going to be playing Lobo. Let's say Jason Momoa is going to be playing Lobo. According to the roadmap that James Gunn and Peter Safran have laid out, that movie would at minimum be 3 or 4 years away, maybe even 5. It doesn't look like it would be coming anytime soon. They may have a plan for it. Let's assume he is going to be playing Lobo, okay? He may not be, but let's assume for this discussion that he is. Okay. Then just because they've got it arranged and agreed upon that he's going to play Lobo, that may not be happening for another 4 or 5 years. Why would they make that announcement now? Like, why would they make that announcement now? Look, we talked about this a lot. Ben Affleck, by the time they had announced that Ben Affleck was going to be Batman in the DCEU, he had already agreed like almost a year earlier to that to act. He actually signed on almost a year before they actually made the announcement. And they didn't make the announcement until they were getting closer to when they'd actually be shooting it. So with any potential Lobo still being that far away, the question is, what would be the point of making the announcement now when a lot can happen in the next 2 or 3 years? Like, okay, you make the announcement now. Jason Momoa's going to be Lobo in like 4 years. But then something comes up and something changes and whatever. And now Jason Momoa is, now you got to backtrack. Okay, well now Jason Momoa isn't playing him. Now we're going to have this guy playing him. So there's really no reason to announce it now until you get much closer to when you're actually going to shoot it. So number one, we don't know that he's going to be Lobo. And number two, even if he is going to be Lobo, there's absolutely no purpose to him making that as an official announcement now, when the movie itself would still be so far away. So that would be my guess on that, Richard. Thanks for writing in, man. All right. And our final question of the day comes to us from Dwayne Fernandez, who writes, you alluded to how Dune Messiah might not be what people like. Do you think they should change it, or does it need to be this way, like Last of Us 2? The thing about Last of Us 2, listen, there's a reason Last of Us 2 won Game of the Year. And there's a reason why it won all the awards. And there's a reason why it broke so many sales records and all that kind of stuff. I think what happens in Last of Us 2 was brilliant. I really do. I think it was absolutely brilliant. What happens in Dune Messiah is not analogous to what happened in The Last of Us. it's actually on a different level. And I can't go into, for people who don't know Dune Messiah, I can't go into, but it's not just like, oh, a character we like dies. It's not that. That's just very, very superficial, whatever. I mean, it's on a whole nother level what happens in Dune Messiah. Like really a whole nother level. And again, it's tough. I can't really, in any meaningful way, really talk about it without going into heavy, heavy spoilers about what's to come in Dune Messiah. But do I think they could change it? I hope he does. I hope he does. I hope he makes some changes. But I mean, listen, there are already, like Hancock just pointed out in the live chat, there are changes to the story. Like Dune 2 makes some significant changes to the Dune book, like perfect changes. And like even Rob, who is a diehard Dune book fanatic, he's like, oh yeah, they made these changes and they are great changes, because some things work better in a book and some things work better when you're trying to tell a story on the screen, right? They're two different mediums. And so sometimes you got to have adaptation. And Dune makes some significant changes from the book in Dune 1 and 2. Makes some significant changes to the book. I'm hoping that they do the same thing for Dune Messiah. I hope they do the same thing for Dune Messiah. Anyway, fingers crossed that they do. All right, I'm just going to double check one quick thing here before we move on. I just also want to point out that that was the last question that got sent in, but I just want to acknowledge our friend Jake Theron, who sent in like a $10 just support badge and then sent in like a $50 support badge just to be supportive to the show. So Jake, myself, and everybody who watches the show, thank you guys. Thank you so much for that support, man. Really, really appreciate it. All right. Guys, I still got a little bit of time here. So what I think we're going to do is I'm just going to go over to the live chat. So listen, if you guys have a question for me just in the live chat, format it like this. See what I just put in the live chat? I just put this in the live chat for you guys there. If you guys have a question, start it off by putting question in capital letters, colon, and then write your question. That way I know if you actually have a question for me, or if you're just talking amongst yourselves. So let's see. And I'm not going to answer all of them. I'm just going to pick a couple out and get to them. Pablo Diablo writes, what is your level of excitement for the Batman 2? And is there any progress in production? Well, production hasn't started. They haven't started shooting it yet, as far as we know. I'm very excited for it. I thought the first Robert Pattinson Batman was great, and I cannot wait to see it. Let's see here. Sean Quinn writes, did you see The Boys finally has a release date? It's June 13th. No, I didn't see that they finally got a release date. Super excited for that. Very, very excited. Let's see. Nestor Alvarado writes, will Mario 2 make $1 billion? I don't think so. I think it'll be a big success. I think it'll make a lot of money, but I don't think it'll make $1 billion. But then again, I didn't think the first one would make it. I mean, I did say that I thought, and it almost was, but I did say months before it came out that I thought Super Mario Brothers movie was going to be the #1 box office movie of the year. And it almost was, came in second behind Barbie. But I don't think the second one will make $1 billion, but we'll see. Let's see. Matthew L. writes, have you watched more Avatar? I have not. I've been getting caught up on a couple of other things, so I'm still only one episode into Avatar: The Last Airbender. I got to finish it off. Kareem V. writes, how is your day today? My day's been great. I'm a little tired because... All right, I'm gonna be honest. You guys know I don't play a lot of poker in LA. I play most of my poker in Vegas, but yesterday, Friday, after the John Campea Show was done, Anne was doing something with her family. So I drove out to a casino in Los Angeles called the Bicycle Casino, where they have a pretty good poker room at the Bicycle Casino. And I went to play poker. I played from about 1:30 in the afternoon to 4 o'clock this morning. And that's not even my longest session of poker ever. But I played from about yesterday at about 1:30 in the afternoon to this morning at about 4 a.m. straight. I only got up to use the bathroom. That's it. Other than that, I played straight. I should have stopped earlier because at one point I was up about a little over $1,800. I was up a little over $1,800, and then I went on a bit of a batch, and I still ended up, but I only ended up about $300. If I had left earlier, I could have had enough money to buy a new MacBook or something. But but I had a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful fun time last night. But so I got home this morning, and Anne's in bed and stuff like that, and I had problems getting. I had a tummy ache. Whatever. So I had a hard time falling asleep. So I just stayed up and watched some YouTube videos till Anne got up. And then Anne and I, we walked the dogs and stuff. And then I went to bed at 10 a.m., slept from 10 a.m. to noon, then got up. Anne and I did some stuff. We watched a little TV together. We made lunch. And then I laid down again from about 2 to 4 p.m. And then I got up, got showered, and came in and to do open mic today. So that has been my day. That has been my day today. But I've had a great day. Thank you for asking. I've had a really, really fun day. All right, let's see. MMA Mike writes, will we see Kit soon in the MCU? Kit Harington, who of course is playing the Black Knight. I don't know when we're going to see him again. Listen, I really got very excited at the end of the Eternals when he opens the sword and all that kind of stuff. And we hear Blade's voice off. I thought we were going to see him soon, but maybe we will, but I haven't heard any. I haven't heard of any. So, heard of any updates on that. So I hope we will. All right. John A.M. writes, which of these prequels do you prefer and enjoy? Star Wars, The Hobbit, or Fantastic Beasts? Well, the Star Wars prequels suck ass. Fantastic Beasts has its pros and cons. I will say The Hobbit, because even though the problem with The Hobbit was that it's nowhere near as good as The Lord of the Rings, but it was still pretty solid. I was not a fan of the third film. I think Peter Jackson made a lot of mistakes with the third one, but like the first two are actually really quite good on their own. Not as good as Lord of the Rings, but The Hobbit was the first book I ever read. And when the dwarves show up to Bilbo's house, the plates, that's what Bilbo Baggins hates. And they start doing the song. Like I was teleported into the Shire. I really liked it a lot. Again, not as good as the Lord of the Rings, but I'd say the worst out of those is definitely the garbage Star Wars prequels. Then Fantastic Beasts, and then the best is probably The Hobbit. So that's part of the reason why I'm not a big fan of prequels, but that's what I kind of feel about that. Let's see. Ujwal writes, have you heard anything about the Amazon GAO? Guys, please don't write in acronyms. I'm going to guess you mean God of War, but guys, please don't write in acronyms. About God of War, nothing. Other than it's happening, I have heard nothing about it. Now, if they can make it on the same level as The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, if they can make it on the same level as The Boys, if they can make it on the same level as a couple of their other shows, then we're in for a real treat. So, but I haven't heard any I'm sure they're making progress on it, but I haven't heard any progress. Tyler Hoffman says, what are your thoughts on Past Lives? Oh, I've talked about Past Lives a couple times. It's brilliant. It's really good. It's great, intimate storytelling that addresses questions that a lot of us have faced at times, especially as we get a little bit older, like once we get into our 30s and stuff like that, questions we've asked. And I thought it was a really brilliant, wonderful movie. All right. Marcus Y writes, did you give up drinking Zevia because they are cheap bastards that won't sponsor the show? Nope. Haven't given up drinking Zevia. I actually have it in my glass right now. And they are cheap bastards who don't sponsor me. So I don't talk about them as much, but no, I still drink Zevia. That is my go-to cola. Let's see. Lamont Smalls writes, do you think Oppenheimer has a chance for a longer theatrical one like Avatar? Even Avatar 2 came close to that. I don't know. I mean, listen, Oppenheimer's already available on home video. I don't think it has a chance for a longer theatrical. I mean, it's already done theatrically, so I don't think we'll see it make a theatrical comeback. It should be out in theaters next weekend or something as a part of some movie theater chains' like Oscar showcase, but I don't think so. Let's see. Alex Von Gollum writes, is there any credence to the budget of Gladiator 2 being 300 million plus? Oh, I doubt it. I don't see why any studio would okay that, and it doesn't need to be that. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't for a fact know that, but my guess is that I believe that's probably radically not true, because any studio would be insane to greenlight that movie for $300 million budget. I mean, that would just be crazy. Let's see. Alex Arrow, do you still train in martial arts? Which one? I mean, I still go to UFC gym. I still train there. I still take classes and things like that, but I haven't hardcore trained. If I'm being honest, I haven't hardcore trained since my heart attack. Most of you know, I suffered a heart attack, 2 heart attacks on the same day a number of years ago. And I was in UFC legendary fighter James Sandman Irvin. He was my Muay Thai instructor. And I had a heart attack after the class. And the funny thing was, I didn't even have the heart attack in the class. The class was done. I was literally sitting on a bench in the gym waiting. Ann was in a jiu-jitsu class, and I was literally waiting for Ann to finish her class, and I got hit with a heart attack. I didn't know it was a heart attack. Something was wrong. I knew something was very, very wrong. And then I recovered, and then like an hour later, I had another heart attack, and that time I went to the hospital, and they're like, yeah, dude, you had 2 heart attacks. And I haven't hardcore trained since. I really should. I mean, so like I still train and stuff like that, but I never got back to that same level as when, as before the heart attack. I'll be honest with you. Look, even though my cardiologist, and this is getting really personal, but whatever, I'll tell you this. Even when my cardiologist told me, like, gave me my final big clearance, and they said, they put me through my stress test, they did all the scans and stuff like that, and they're like, you're good to go, man. Like, you are good to go. You're fine now. Go for it, right? I've never sprinted since then. Like, even when I go to, even when I'm at the gym, and I've got a Peloton treadmill at home too, and when I go to the gym and get on the elliptical or the treadmill, I don't run. I brisk walk for like 45 minutes. I do 5 miles a day. I do all that kind of stuff, but there's still this fear in the back of my head or something that I'm scared of, because the last time I really pushed myself cardio-wise, I had a heart attack. And I know my doctors have told me, you're good, you're fine. We found what the problem was and we fixed it and you're good. But I'm trying to think of a movie comparison, when the hero, something bad happened and the hero just can't do that again, whatever. And that's, so I've never really been in anything that really pushes me really hard. I don't sprint. I don't grapple. I mean, I've done a little bit of grappling, but just very simple, rolling on the mat, like very, very simple stuff, not intense. I don't sprint on the treadmill. Even when I'm doing like heavy bag work, I just do like 1 minute rounds instead of like really intense 2 or 3 or 4 minute rounds. And it's all mental. It's all mental. And it's something I hope I get over. But anyway, there's a little personal stuff for you. All right, let me see if I can find one more here. Let's see. Finish Oh, this is interesting. Kane Legion is asking, will you get caught up on World of Warcraft again? You know, I've been tempted. So here's the thing with me in World of Warcraft. So I played like unspeakable numbers of hours playing World of Warcraft back in its day. And then after a number of years, I kind of fell off of it. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, I got back on World of Warcraft. And then the Battle for Azeroth expansion came out and just ruined the game for me. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I hate this. And then I stopped playing it again. I don't know if I'll get back. Like right now, I'm really more concerned about getting a new character going on Baldur's Gate 3. Because I did the one run on Baldur's Gate, and now I want to go back to the beginning, start a brand new a totally different character, take a different path, and do Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know. I might someday go back to World of Warcraft, maybe start it again. But I mean, I've spent a lot of years playing World of Warcraft, many years playing World of Warcraft. I don't know if I'll go back again, but maybe. Who knows? And all right, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of Open Mic. Oh my gosh, is it actually? It's 8:45? What? Really? Okay. This has been like over 2.5 hours. I didn't expect today to be that long, but there we are. 2.5 hours Saturday live stream. Thanks a lot for being here with me, guys. Don't forget, tomorrow, we are doing a Dune 2 open spoiler discussion. I'm thinking it's going to be 3 p.m. in the afternoon. I'm thinking that's when we're going to do it. I will post the live event tonight. So we're not starting the show tonight, but later tonight, I will post the event so you can see that the event, and it will be counting down to tomorrow at 3 o'clock. And you'll be able to start throwing in questions there around that time, I think. But hopefully you guys will come and join me for that if you've seen Dune 2 already. Again, guys, big thank you to all of you guys who sent in all the questions and giving me great fun things to talk about and supporting the channel as you did. So thank you guys so much for that. I appreciate you to no ends. You have no idea how much. I'll see you again tomorrow. If you haven't seen Dune 2 yet, or you're not interested in Dune 2 and you're not going to be joining us for the Dune 2 spoiler discussion tomorrow, I'll see you again on Monday when the John Campea Show returns with me, Rob, Ray, and Jonathan. Looking forward to seeing you guys then. So that'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.